Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this discussion around scaling the cross border strategy, what global ambition looks like for Indian startups. We are at an exciting inflection point where Indian startups are no longer just limited to solving local problems or dealing locally. In fact, startups want a global footprint, whether it's a SaaS company, something around consumer tech, or fintech. The ambition to go global is unmistakable. But the backdrop matters. With President Trump in the White House, we're already seeing signals of a different policy environment, tougher scrutiny on immigration, shifts in the trade relationship, and potential new barriers around capital flows and data governance. For Indian startups, the US remains the largest market and the deepest capital pool. The question is, how do you navigate opportunity and uncertainty at the same time? To take this conversation forward, we have with us today a distinguished panel. We have Manish Arora, co-founder, Efficient Capital Labs. We have Raghunandanji from Zolve and Himanshu Gupta from VRise. So let's get the Trump question out of the way first. How do you see, and it's a common question to all of you, how do you see President Trump's immigration and trade policies reshaping landscape for Indian startups and when it comes to scaling globally?
Yeah. Shall I go first? Okay.
please.
All right. Look, I think first of all, it's a pleasure being here. So, grateful for the opportunity to be part of this panel. Now, what President Trump is doing, I think, is essentially his policy. The stated policy is to be America first, and essentially what that means is a lot of his support base. It comes from what you call as the middle America. So people who have been particularly badly affected when it comes to things such as outsourcing, etc. So that has a natural implication on immigration. Now, what that means is, will it make it harder for Indian entrepreneurs to go to the US? Possibly. But probably the bigger impact comes not so much on the entrepreneurs, but maybe one level below, maybe on the students who would have been entrepreneurs in like maybe 10, 15 years, maybe people who are going there as part of their job deployments from likes of TCS, Infosys, etc. The other thing I think that we need to kind of bear in mind here is that, first of all, I think when you look at the very top end of the entrepreneurship, where people are very well funded, where people are kind of already have success behind them, I think it doesn't really impact them. It will be as easy for them to remain. So in some ways, like, those people will be beyond the monetary impact, the cost of the visas going a little higher, maybe from 1 million to 5 million. On the whole, I think it will cut noise for them. So maybe it's a net positive for them. For the students and likes, maybe it is slightly negative for them. But I think a big opportunity in today's time is things around AI, etc. Things which actually do not require a lot of people movement, if you like, to the market. And I think in those areas, probably there is opportunity. One could also make a counter argument, because there's no dependence on people, there is no natural competitive advantage that a place like India has, right? So you could also make a counter argument. So I think it remains to be seen, how do we as a country, how do we as a sort of entrepreneurs community step up to the challenge, because we no longer have as much play that we had in terms of competitive advantage given the labor arbitrage that we had. So we really have to kind of step up and make ourselves very well versed with leveraging AI to build a competitive advantage. I think it remains to be seen how we do it. I am not, as far as this particular kind of lens is concerned, which is the impact on Indian startups, I am not that much bearish on the impact because of all that Trump administration is doing. I think there are some things which are probably a little bit on the positive side, and some things which are a little bit on the negative side. If we step up to the challenge, I think it's not going to impact us very badly as far as the tech startups looking to the US market are concerned.
Right. You want to take it up?
Yeah, interesting. I think so my view is a bit more neutral here, right? And mostly on the positive side itself. Primarily because I think over the last few decades, I think the pendulum has swung too far on the other side. Right. And if you really want to figure out where does the equilibrium lie, right, the pendulum has to swing the other side completely. All right. And what we are getting to witness is that. All right. So once the pendulum can moves to the other side, that's when people start figuring out the real value that migration has brought to the country. Right. And what do they lose by having such high tariffs on trade, right? Because it's the end consumer who's paying. Right, the government is going to get benefited and stuff like that. The government has to now figure out the additional money that they collect, how will they probably give it back to the folks and stuff like that. But that money has to be paid by the US citizen itself, whether they live in the coast or whether it is going to live in the Central America and stuff like that, right? They have to necessarily pay that. So it is not necessarily country friendly or the citizens friendly. It is going to put a lot of stress on the citizens itself, right? And not all the people have agreed to that. But the pendulum has to swing the other side for people to really start realizing the real value. So then it would probably oscillate and probably figure out a good equilibrium. So we just have to probably give it a bit more time. All right. So we need to be a bit more patient when it comes to all this for this thing to start really, because the common man in the America has to start feeling the pinch of these policies. We haven't really seen that. We have right. So the businesses which are in the export related businesses, right, they would probably start feeling the pinch right now. But one has to be patient here, so that once the citizen starts feeling the pinch, the government will start responding to the citizens. Because whatever the government is currently doing, as he mentioned, right, the government is trying to do something for their people. And if the people are trying to feel the pinch, right, the government will start course correcting. So we just have to really start doing that, right? That's one, right? And when it comes to trade, for India, US is not the only country that we trade with, right? So we trade with others also. So that way, the net impact on the country will not be as significantly high as that. But when it comes to migration, right, where people movement, when it comes to goods movement, we're not so dependent on the US. But when it comes to people movement, US is the preferred country. US is the preferred destination and stuff like that. There we will see a significant impact in the short term. Right, and that's where we need to really figure out, and that's where the folks who are already there. So people have seen the benefit that migration is essentially bringing in. Probably I will not use the word migration. I would essentially probably start using the word providing a level playing field and access to resources for anybody and anywhere in the world to come there and do things, do wonders for that country. So once they start losing that advantage, right, but that will take probably a much longer time. But there are people who foresee that, who understand that, and they probably have to make sense, speak sense into the government to really do this, right? And the case in point is 4 or 5 years back we had COVID. During COVID also, when people were not allowed to travel, right, within the same country, migration continued to happen because the country needs it. Country just doesn't need people, students to fund the universities and stuff like that. They need the talent that comes along with it. Right, the country needs it, and the country recognizes it. And during COVID also, they made an exception only for this. Right, just a matter of time for this thing to catch up. But what we need to do is to be patient, but do whatever that is necessary to be done. And again, as he mentioned, right, it's a wake-up call for the country, so that you don't have to necessarily be dependent. You need to hedge yourself, and that is probably where it comes. So it's a crisis, but we should never miss out on a good crisis.
Right. What about you? Thanks for inviting me to this panel. And I would want to expand what Raghunandan has just put forward. So, India has always been good when there is a crisis. And COVID has been a good example of how India has managed crisis well. And the biggest crisis was in the 1992 when India opened up its economy, because India was in huge crisis. India was a closed economy, and then the crisis hit. And that's what Indians are good at, right? So in the normal situation, what would have happened that we would have again happily do what we are currently doing. We would not have to think very hard on what the next 10 years India should do. Now, what Trump has done is basically changing the whole world order. It is not only the India that is part of that new world order that India has to find out where they belong. But he is not only changing it for India, but he is also changing it for Europe. He is also changing it for Americans. He is also changing it for his biggest adversaries, which is Russia and China, right? If you look at China and Russia,
used to be the biggest adversaries of US because of the cultural and the political and the ideological differences. And if you think about Trump, he doesn't care that much about the ideology only, but what he cares about the trade and the new technology that are going to shape the world. And what I'm really hopeful about is the way the previous, if you look at the previous American administration, Joe Biden era versus Trump era. In Joe Biden's era, we used to have cryptocurrency, we used to have a stable coin, we used to also have AI. It started in 2021, 2022, but we did not see the push from the American administration to push these technologies and become like supreme power, and they should be the winner of these technologies, which Trump is putting forth, that America should be the only country who should be the number one in all of these technologies. They should own these IPs. They should be whatever is the critical components to make sure these technologies are going to be the future enablers for many other things to come. Either we talk about the AI, or we talk about the cryptocurrencies, or we talk about the new change that is coming in the financial ecosystem. All of that, America should be the first one, right? So that's where now all the world leaders have to think about what America is thinking about. How do they become the largest economy? How do they become the more powerful than what they are? It is not only about the military anymore, right? So earlier we used to think about that, if we used to think about America cares about the military conflict more than about the trade. That has suddenly changed. If you think about the Trump, he takes care more about the trade than the military conflicts, and that has changed the whole world order. Now he is making peace deals, and he is so much involved into Russia and Ukraine, and it's very surprising to everyone that he is talking to Putin, right? So that's where I think the opportunity for India comes in.
Right.
We Indians are very good at finding out where the skilled manpower is required, right? So if you think about any new technology, there is going to be a good manpower skills that are going to be required, right? So I come from the finance industry. We are a fintech startup. I already see lot of innovations that I can do in the financial ecosystem, financial services, that can help my country, my company, and my employees do much more efficient, do much more work more efficiently than they currently cannot do, right? So, and if if India can become part of that super power of developing these technologies, either with China or with the US or with Europe, I think we should not care about who are going to align with. And I think India is doing the right thing, that yes, they have alienated US in some way. I don't think it's going to be a long term. I think it's going to be a short term, that we will align back again with the US. We have got very good starting to have good relationship with China, who has the control on these technologies. And if we, let's say, can work like we used to earlier work, there used to be not a unipolar world, right? So in the if you think about the Cold War after the World War II, the US and Russia were two major superpowers, and India has always worked well with one superpower, but they have never alienated other superpower. And that's what I think we are going into, that if we can work both with China and US, it's going to be in the benefit of India. And we should not take the adversaries view in any of these countries. We have to work with both of them. They are going to help India move forward. And I think, to end what I was trying to say, we ultimately are the global superpower in terms of the resources that we have, the intellectual horsepower that we have, the 100 million educated workforce that can build these technologies for the super powers of the world. So I think it's going to be a huge benefit for India. We just need to be patient, and we should not lose focus on what we need to build over the next 5 years or 10 years. And apart from what Modi ji is pushing for is self-reliance in manufacturing, if we can also have another slogan on how do we become self-reliance on the technology front. And these are the new technology. No one has the leading advantage in these technologies. So if India can just gel well with all of these superpowers and become part of the inner circle, I think it's going to be a great future. And I'm happy that Trump is just changing this world order so that everyone sees what they should do best.
So carrying on from that, Manish, if I can come to you, we're in 2025 now. What does global ambition actually look like? Indian startups have matured.
Yeah.
We know more in the 1999, 2000. So what does global ambition look like? Is it about capital? Is it about market access? Is it about, building a global product? What is it?
Yes. I think because the startup word is not a monolith, so I just want to kind of break it down into two broad categories. So there are tech startups for whom global ambition has a slightly different meaning. And then there are sort of startups like consumer internet, etc., like India focused startups for whom consumption oriented startups, like for whom global ambition has slightly different meaning. Now, when we look at the tech word, what does global ambition mean? I think for tech word, for a long period of time, and it hasn't really changed, global ambition means that you got to have a meaningful revenue from outside India. This is for multiple reasons. One, because you can charge a lot more outside India. The markets are much bigger. The tech adoption is much higher. The adoption curve is much shorter, which means people take a lot less time to actually start paying for a tech. So I think for a lot of tech startups, the focus really when it comes to global ambition is that how they can monetize well outside India. And outside India, particularly US remains a big market, because while Europe is a big market, it's slightly heterogeneous, and our tech is kind of going the SaaS way, if you like.
And is it more regulated, EU?
I think regulation is not something which affects every single SaaS business. I think what happens is there are language issues, the consumer buying behavior is different, and a lot of SaaS is vertical focused, and different industries have slightly different nuances. If I could give you an example just to bring it to life, imagine that you are solving a problem which is related to, I don't know, HRMS, HR management system. So, while you could build something, which works across the world, but probably the flavor in terms of how people manage their human resources will be very different in the US compared to how it is in Europe. Similarly, some things around tax, etc. So I think US remains the sort of shining beacon that everyone is looking up to when it comes to global ambition in the tech space. Yeah. And also, I think once your product has been adopted by the US market, it's kind of a seal of confidence that you can use while marketing it to the other markets, particularly when it comes to markets that look up to the US, for instance, Latin America, etc. I think when it comes to other businesses, what is the global ambition? We are talking about likes of, Zepto and, Swiggy's here, which are focused on India. But still, I think for these companies, while the global ambition is not there in terms of, immediately taking their product outside the country, I think the ambition really is to measure up to global benchmarks when it comes to the adoption of tech, when it comes to the service that they provide, when it comes even to the market caps that these businesses can command. So in one case, the global ambition is really about global markets, specifically US forming a big part of it. In the other case, the global ambition is kind of matching up to global standards of execution, global talent, and having an infra which may not necessarily be a part of your roadmap to go outside the country, but you are very much there. For instance, Flipkart may still be very much India focused business, but who knows, based on the geopolitical winds and how things turn out, maybe tomorrow, it has a bigger presence in the neighboring countries, and then, from there to Southeast Asia and so on. So I think a lot of businesses which are being built, even for India today, they are being built with the infrastructure and with the kind of processes, systems that have a global maturity kind of built into those startups.
Raghunan, coming to you, we've all talked about this during the opening question. India has a huge diaspora outside the country. They have a lot of problems which traditional banks fail to address. In your case, you had a cross-border platform from day one. So what are the factors which you that helped you in deciding that yes, this is a scalable global opportunity?
See, for a majority of us, we just go with the problem. So I was traveling in the US, trying to figure out what's really happening in the US in the startup ecosystem and things like that, right? So during one such travel, I came across one of my friends who had just moved to the US. And after dinner, when the check came, he took out cash to pay. And I was like surprised. Why are you taking cash out? Right? And why, first of all, why are you carrying so much of cash? And why are you taking cash to pay? Right? Why don't you use your card? And then he mentioned that he doesn't get a card. It's like, why don't you get a card? Because you have a great credit history, and he's a founder of a startup which he was trying to list in the US, which he eventually listed in NASDAQ. Right? But he mentioned that you can't use Indian stuff in the US. And that's when I realized that you can use the education degrees in India in the US. And you can use your Indian driving license to rent a car in the US. So then why can't you just use your credit history here? So that's how the seed was born, and we went ahead and started building for the audience there. And because we were focusing on Indians going to US, that's where we started off. So that's the reason we started off building it in India. But the end consumer product is used in the US. And eventually that got a lot more viral in the US. Then migrants from other countries started approaching us. So then we started taking a step approach. Then once it started working in India, in the US, so we replicated the same thing in Canada. Now we are in UK also, right? So for us, we never started off as to be a global company per se. So there was a problem, and we started trying to solve that particular problem. And then the market only took us wherever we need to go to. So that's been more our journey. But now having more exposure to what is happening in the US, and also having exposure to what is happening in India, right? Right, completely agree with what Manish is talking about, I think. Building for the world. So what's one is to replicate whatever that has been successful in India to the masses. Let's say the Oyo example, or the Zomato example, or the Ola example, and stuff like that, right? Or just like SaaS companies do, right? Build for the US markets, right? And then start replicating to other markets and stuff like that, right? I think that will continue to happen. I think that things will not really change. The other significant thing is most of us don't even know the potential of what we have already built. Right, so there is this company called Ninja Cart, right? So they are into fresh fruits and vegetables. So that they build an amazing tech. Fruits and vegetables are perishables. So as soon as you get it from the farmers, you need to really get it to the warehouse and start getting it to the retailers, so that the end consumers start, because you don't have delay. Non-perishables, you can take 1 2 months and stuff like that to get it, but perishables you don't have such kind of a timeline. So they build an entire tech platform to really get to the farmers, to the consumer's door in the shortest period of time. And that is working across multiple geographies and stuff like that. And India is big, all right, to feed the 1.4 billion population, right? They don't have to necessarily go out and stuff like that, right? But what happened was, there was this Brazilian company who wants to do that. And they couldn't build a tech. They know that India is really, really good at tech, right? Whether because of the thanks to the Wipros or the Infosys of the world or whatever it is. They came to India, figured out that Ninja Cart technology is phenomenal. And right, and they bought essentially the licensed Ninja Cart. And Ninja Cart is like, we're not in the SaaS business. We're not in the tech business. We are in this business. We want to do this. And those guys also didn't know how to pay, what not to pay, and stuff like that, right? And they didn't have the money to pay. So what it was, they gave equity to Ninja Cart. So this is now turning out to be more like right, Yahoo's investment in Alibaba.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So essentially, so we just don't know. I mean, we are sitting on a gold mine. But the challenge is, we don't know we are sitting on a gold mine. Right, so we are more concerned with, okay, this is what we started off with, so let's focus on this and do this. But there are a lot of other things, and this was more serendipitous. Right, but if we start looking at that, right, so we have so much of wealth over the years that we have built, right, and that has to start propagating, and that's when we've truly arrived, because we've been building stuff for the last 2-3 decades, right? The rest of the world hasn't seen it. Right, we go out. Hardly people come in to see what we have built, right? Whether the Zeptos of the world, the Zomatos of the world, or the Rapidos of the world, and stuff like that, right? We have built, we are doing phenomenal, the UPS of the world, and stuff like that, the entire against that. Everything that we have built. So we consume it, we believe in it, we understand it. The rest of the world hasn't even observed it. Right? Absolutely. And that is what probably the government has to really do, this, to provide a platform for people to come to the country, see, observe, experience, and take those things to the country. Because you've already done it. Catering to 1.4 billion population is phenomenally amazing, and the rest of the world is
I think some of the models that we have built, especially in quick commerce, and it's so addictive and so unique to India. Again, in delivery as well, that it's absolutely possible to take it global and replicate it maybe somewhere else in the world.
There also, just to add to that, right? I think majority of it is in the minds of us. It's nothing to do there, right? The world is already flat. A new Apple phone launches in the US, the next day you get it in India.
Yep.
Right? And let's say GPT-5 went live there, went live here.
And at a cheaper price.
Exactly, right? The world is already flat. Right? So then the entire thing is not global. There is nothing called local and there is nothing called global. Right? A consumer is a consumer, irrespective of wherever they are. Right? So we just have to really, as long as we take care of the regulations and the compliance and things like that, right? Any consumer across essentially the entire globe is our marketplace.
So I think with the ChatGPT and the AI part, I'll get to that question later on. But first, Himanshu, coming to your business model, you essentially solve for the problems in Bharat. So in such a case, what does global ambition look like for you? And can it be markets which are not maybe the US, maybe other countries? What does it look like for you?
Yeah. To answer that question, I will first summarize what VRIs do, because then I would be able to expand the thesis. How can we take this thesis currently that we are operating in India to other parts of the world, right? So what VRIs is essentially a full stack financial services company. And what does it mean is that like any other e-commerce company, we have a marketplace and we are able to sell different financial services to the Bharat customer. Now, it's easier said than done, because if you think about the kind of services that we provide or the kind of financial products that we provide, we give personal loans, we give business loans, we give loan against property, we sell insurances, cross-sell, and this is very specific product that we have built for the Bharat customer. And then we are also moving into the saving accounts, which is now getting much more PR kind of the digital gold and the FD savings kind of a product is very, now people are becoming more used to how do we buy it online, right? So because people are used to buying things on the e-commerce the same way, people are now they have this they are coming out of the fear that they can buy digital gold and they can book FD on the digital platforms. So all of this, ultimately, how do you distribute these products to the Bharat customer is one problem, right? So getting to the Bharat customer, how do you build the distribution layer so that you reach to the right person in the tier 2, tier 3 and beyond? And that's a huge market, and that's what we are playing. So the customer segment that we are going to is very unserved or underserved, where there are banks, they have the bank accounts, these are literate people, they are working in good companies in the tier 2, tier 3 and beyond, but the current access to the financial services is limited. And by the way, to what Raghu was saying and Manish was saying, India has the best financial services stack. Think about the UPI, think about Indian banks. Indian banks are, I would say, like 20 years ahead where the US banks are. US banks are still on the mainframes. Indian banks are already on the cloud. Indian banks are already the largest fintech that we can ever imagine. Still, there are a lot of innovations that the banks are either not focusing on or not doing. That's where the companies like Vira is coming. So we are building a distribution chain to get these financial services into the tier 2 and beyond, underserved. And how do you get the supply side, right? So the banks and the large NBFCs are sitting on the cash pile of the capital. The CASA account is there in the banks. How do you match the demand with the supply So what you need to build ultimately is the technology layer, right? And that's what we are building. So we are ultimately building is a SaaS platform, but we own each and every part of that stack. We own the customer, we own the distribution, we own the technology to match the demand and supply. Let's say a and we also have an NBFC, right? So we have NBFC, RBI regulated NBFC. So we also know the compliances, right? So and we are moving all of that together so that it becomes one single product that we can replicate from India to any of the part of the world the where the customers are underserved. So, for example, Malaysia, right? So Southeast Asia is one big market where I see the fintechs can go into. So if you think about the UPI stack is already going to Singapore, right? So the Singapore government is using the UPI stack. So they already know that financial services innovation that India has done, it's unmatched and unparalleled across the world. It's the same way what we are building. Our ambition is that first we need to cater to a huge market that there is in India. But what we can also see, like what Ninja Cart has done, right? I can I can IP the full technology stack that I have built, and I can create a subsidiary in, let's say, a Malaysian market or a Philippines market or any other market, or I can either that subsidiary can be owned or partially owned by Indian subsidiary, which is me, or I can invest into an entrepreneur who is there, and then they can build or they can customize this technology stack as per the local market. And the markets are very different in different parts of the world. So regulations can be very different. The whole customer behavior can be very different. So there is a lot of operational aspect that can be fine-tuned on this technology stack that we are building. But ultimately, a lot of companies like VRISE, what we are essentially building is the technology, right? So if we are able to crack the Indian diaspora, so we are already catering to almost 20 states in India. We have 0 branches, and everything and anything is done from an office in Bangalore. We employ 1,500 people. And the good thing about India is that any part that you go to, you're able to find talent, and then you are able to find the right skill set for the companies like us to grow. And my employees can speak in 10 different languages. My employees can talk to different part of the people who are not very well conversed in one language or 2 language. So the whole idea is that how do you build for the world, but first you have to build it for the India or Bharat customers. And if you are able to solve that customer segment, which is Bharat customer, let's say we talk about Europe. Again, Europe is very different from US, is because there are language barriers, there are compliance barriers. So India is like a mini Europe, right? So every state you go to, you find different language, you find different culture, you find different mindset of the people. If you solve for India, actually you solve for the whole of the world, and then you can basically expand outside India. It will be an easy thing for you.
Interesting. Manish, if I can come to uh, at what we've heard him speak that if you solve for India, you're good almost for the global stage. At what stage should then founders decide that, okay, fine, now is the time that I should look at going global? Is there something like that? And let me put in the AI part into that now. Has AI made things easy in terms of market study or something like that? What are your views on that?
Sure. So I'll answer this in the context of tech businesses, specifically, SaaS and AI kind of businesses. I think there are 2-3 different stages at which you can consider this. Like for some businesses, if you are very clear in terms of your vision, you could start outside the country, because again, the product may be such that you are solving a problem for a particular market which may not like his product, right? Or there may be other reasons, willingness to pay, tech adoption curve, and so on. So that's one stage at which you could do. Now, I think your question is probably more relevant in the scenarios where somebody has already kind of had some success in the home market, which is India, and then you are considering going global. I would say that if that's the case, then I think you should have two, three sort of clear kind of things that you should validate. One is that you should have a good idea that, okay, you are not running things in a way which is very specific to India. So there has to be some element of internationalization. There has to be somewhat, you can't run a business on Jugaad and then try to kind of, take it outside the country. So I think one element is like what kind of standardization that you have achieved. The second element is what kind of product market fit you have achieved, and what's your go to market motion look like. Because if your go to market motion that you have built, it's very specific to India, then taking it to outside market, for example, if your salespeople are not well conversant with the cultures of the markets outside, or if you are using WhatsApp, for instance, to sell it down, that will not translate very well to a different market. So your go to market motion also has to be something that supports it. And third, very important pillar is that what kind of capital do you have available to support that global ambition, right? Because the first two things that we have talked about, they are about the processes, they are about the sort of capabilities, the culture to an extent, but you also need capital to support a global ambition. And therein you kind of need to figure out like what kind of capital do I need, how much capital do I need. Because if your product is such that takes you just have to kind of sell it in a different market, that's a very different kind of capital requirement as compared to a product which may require some sort of fundamental customization for different markets, where you have to have partners, where you have to have local customization, where you have to have language changes. So that's, I think, how I look at in terms of the thresholds that you need to meet in order to actually have a realistic chance at executing on a global ambition. Now, the second part of your question was, how does AI, how does AI change it? So essentially, I think AI kind of changes it in two, three different ways. One is, AI does two things for you. One is AI can help you build capabilities a lot faster, to the extent that you needed some customization, to the extent that you needed, maybe even with AI, you don't even need to invest in sort of localizing your product as much. AI can take care of, for example, the front end, the preferences with regards to, how something should look and feel in a particular market for it to be palatable. So that's one aspect where AI helps you. But a bigger aspect where AI helps you is, AI is kind of, it's a sort of leverage. Just as capital is a form of leverage, AI is a form of leverage. So you can use AI to leverage your sort of business in multiple ways. AI can help you with go to market. For instance, one of the things that we sell to US customers, and most of the salespeople that we had hired, they had not sold to the US. So even a couple of years back, when AI was not a big thing, like one of the things that we had to do was to use, some of these AI tools to actually make the language of the emails and the style of those emails a little more palatable to the US audience. Yeah. So a lot of things, and these days AI can do a lot more than that. It's not just the messaging, it's also the scheduling of it, it's also the responses to it, and a lot of other things. So it is a form of leverage which can make your operations more efficient. It's also kind of you know a tool, if you like, which can help you actually build those capabilities very, very quickly, which you need in a particular market. So one is like building what you need to sell and then selling it. So it can help you with both the things. Largely, as a startup, what you do is you build something and then you sell it, right? So AI can help you with both the build part of it as well as the sell part of it. So I believe, like, as far as global ambition is concerned, I think AI helps pretty much all the startups everywhere. But in case of India, which has been historically a sort of capital starved market, because AI is a form of leverage, AI will help places like India even more, provided that we are good at adoption of it. Just to give you a very sort of simple example, the pricing of AI, for example, Perplexity Pro in India is free for Airtel customers, or even I think recently OpenAI kind of launched a version 399 version in India. So just as it is cheaper to use Gmail in India, like the business version, as compared to the US, similarly, one can say with some level of confidence that it will be cheaper to utilize AI in India. And because capital is the same everywhere, like the cost of capital is more or less the same. If anything, it was higher in India. So in that sense, it actually helps Indian businesses more, because the cost of capital in India was higher than the US always, or many other markets. But the cost of AI, which is a form of leverage, which is kind of substitute for capital, is actually lower in India. So I think it will actually be a really good thing for our global ambition as a startup community.
Right. Just to add to that, I think these are phenomenal points and stuff like that, right? Just to add, we have a structural problem, right? For us to go global, the foreigners don't travel. If they travel within India, right? They're so fixated on solving the problem, right? They just don't want to go anywhere because everything is distraction. Right? If you don't go there, you can't get there. First, you need to go there. The product doesn't get there first. You go there, you see the market and stuff like that, all the customization that he's talking about, it. You need to understand the market to do this, because you can easily do that. And the tools help you to get there sooner. But none of us travel. All right. And the challenge is not just us. The challenge is with the investors also. They also don't travel. Right? The entire fund structure is, this is an India specific fund. This is a South Asia specific fund. This is a US based fund. This is a UK based fund. And stuff like that. Everybody is working in their own silos. The aspiration, ambition is to go global. But everything, all the work is local. So structurally, that's the problem. You can't do that. And we have tons and tons of examples wherein other people have cracked it. Right? AWS has a setup in India. Right? That is physical setup. Why should somebody from there has to come and do this? Uber came, right? And Uber was not even really, really big in the US. Within the second year of operations, they started expanding globally. Right? And they didn't really do all this customization stuff like that. This is the product, this is what it is, people should take it. All right, and they went everywhere, right? They didn't put up a large teams everywhere. They just put up a 3-member team. And that is on the ground ops, onboarding cabs, finding customer pain point, figuring out the pricing is not the same within the country only. The taxi prices within the country itself is different. And they're sitting there in SF and doing it for the world. If you really look at it, whether it's Amazon coming here, Uber coming here, every single thing that is coming here, right? We can learn a lot from those things for us to go out there. But we just,
large teams,
we don't. So there are people who have already been there, done that, cracked it. And we have all kinds of examples. Whether it's going to be software, whether it's going to be TikTok and stuff like that, or whether it's going to be hardware related, there'll be data on the ground ops related and stuff like that, right? All those examples are there where people have come to India and cracked it. Right? You can learn a lot of those things when we have to go global. But it's just that we are so happy with the market opportunity the country provides.
It's in distractions.
Right. So then that itself is a big thing for us. Why do we need to really go there and stuff like that, right? So we need to probably figure out a way to change this structurally. How do the founders start thinking global? How do the people have to start traveling? How do the VCs have to go beyond their restriction of that, okay, we are a India-based fund, let's say Axel India, right? They're an India-based fund. They can only invest in Indian companies. Right, and they want the founders only to continue to focus on India. And if you keep asking the same set of questions, right, the founder is bound to stick to that set of questions. If the VCs then start asking a different set of questions, right, then the founder will start thinking about that, right. The only way for us to think way beyond is to stand on the shoulders of giants, and the VCs are those giants. And if those people act like dogs, the people standing them also end up being dogs only. So there is some amount of structural change that we need to bring to the country for us to be out there.
Right.
So I have a little bit contrarian view here, and that is because we are a contrary company. Because when we started, because we are talking about VCs and we are talking about how the capital flows into the companies, and most of the VCs are actually coming from outside, and the money is coming from outside, and thesis where this money should go is also coming from outside. They don't see Indian problems getting solved easily. And we were the first company, very few companies who were focusing on the Bharat customer. Think about 2018 when everyone was focusing on, there is a parallel company in US, there is a parallel company in Europe that is solving the problem there. How do you copy that same stack or the problem statement into India? That is only limited to maybe 5 crore or 50 million customers. Because if you think about India, India is not homogeneous. There is a Dubai within India. We are all part of that. We are Dubai within India. Then there is then I would say Brazil within India, or Malaysia within India, right? So that's the middle class, and that is only 100 million. After that, there is a huge segment of people who don't care about Uber, who don't care about Ola, who don't care about Zepto or Zomato. If you go outside the top tier cities, people still go to the supermarket, people still go to the shops and they buy. So whatever problems that the VCs are pushing the entrepreneurs to solve is, in my view, is limited. So that's where the company like us has to go beyond what the VCs are trying to solve, right? It is not that we did not get the funding. We have the best investors funding us. And this is the problem that I think we should focus on. So I appreciate the Raghu's point of view that Indians should go out and see how they have solved the problem. But the problem is that we Indians are not also focused on solving the Indian problems. And if we are able to solve, I come back to my earlier thesis that if we are able to solve for India, for Indian diaspora, for Indian people, the challenges are so huge, humongous. How do we solve the operational challenges? How do we build the technology stack? How do you build the stack for the masses that you can replicate that solution everywhere? Right? So Oyo is a good example. Ninja Card that we thought is a good example. How we build the UPI stack is a build example. If someone who have traveled outside India and thought that let's build the banking system or the fintech system that the US has built and the Europe has built, we would not have the UPI. We would not have the IMPS. Right? It is free. You think about the capitalistic market. Can anything be free like an UPI and IMPS? And it is creating waves. The whole economy is becoming digitized, and we are the biggest beneficiary of that digital economy, being a fintech, that I am able to underwrite or risk assess customer because all the data is now in the bank accounts. I can understand how much a business is earning, how much that business is spending, where this spend is going, how these GST is a beautiful example of that. How do you build the GST on top of it? So whatever we are building as an Indian for the Indian solutions, maybe we will not find a parallel in the rest of the world. We'll have to be India first. We have to think from the Bharat customer. If I solve for a business man sitting in Maharashtra, the way I solve it, the problem for Maharashtra would be different in terms of, let's say, operations, would be different from Gujarat, or would be different from Delhi, would be different in UP, would be different in Karnataka, would be different in Tamil Nadu, would be different in Kerala, right? So it's a huge problem that we should ideally solve first for ourselves. And that's what I think China has done, that they have built a lot of this technology facing inwards, and then they tested it in that market. So you have a good product market fit. You have the GTM, go to market strategy, which is profitable, which most of the companies don't think about. So you have to build a business which is profitable. You cannot burn money, get money from the VCs and think about the profitability later. Now, from the last 2 years, 3 years, VCs have also realized that they have to invest in companies which have a path to become profitable. And that's really being amazing how these startups are becoming public listed companies now. Like, think about 5 years ago. You cannot even think about companies becoming the Indian public listed entities. Now we have tons of examples. The companies are doing this. And that is the problem that I would expect more and more entrepreneurs to think about. That solve for India, solve for Bharat. These opportunities are huge. Build the technology layer for Bharat customer. Build the technology layer for India. Have your hands dirty. Build the operations. Build that muscles, and then world is at your play. Right. So that's my.
I think also, I think once you build for India and you've solved an Indian problem, I think you will also have money as a founder to roam the world and try and figure out where that product of yours fits. Anyway, so in the interest of time, I think last question. We've had diverse views. Starting with you, Manish. If you know, if I had, if I had a business and I wanted to go global, what would be that one or two or maybe three things, very briefly, that you would suggest I do?
You already have a business, or are you kind of
I
thinking
already
about?
have a business, but yeah, I mean, different product maybe.
Yeah, I think the first thing that one has to kind of really think, and that's very hard sometimes as an entrepreneur. Like, you really want to have a good, honest, hard look at the problem that you are solving, and just ask yourself, like, does this problem exist globally, or does this exist only in my neighborhood, or maybe sometimes only in my imagination? I think that goes to the point that Raghu made earlier. Like, you really have to go out there, because it's it's one thing to kind of formulate an opinion by watching YouTube videos or reading research material. It's quite another to actually go in the market and to figure out what's there. So I think one very good appreciation of the problem that you are solving, and that you have validated that problem statement. The other is, like, you also need to have a very good and honest appreciation of how big that problem statement is, because accordingly you should formulate your capital strategy. Because if the problem that you're solving is truly a multi-billion dollar uh, problem statement, then you take VC money, and then you go aggressive, and then you take a certain path to solve that problem. But sometimes there are global problems, but they may be like 30, 40, 50 million dollars of opportunity, and nothing wrong with that. Okay, but then that should guide your capital strategy, because these are two different DNAs that you have. Like, a company that you want to kind of run in a very efficient mode, that will maybe play to at 30, 40 million dollars is a very different kind of company DNA than a company which wants to conquer the world. To take his example, like an Uber. So these things, they kind of are very sort of organizational and formative in nature. Like, once that DNA has been formed, once that culture has been formed, it's very hard to change it. So I think you should have a very good sort of view in terms of the market size. And finally, I think the thing that is very important is, like, just self-reflection, and that's for the founders at least. You need to have a global mindset to solve a global problem. Doesn't matter how intelligent, how successful, how sharp you are in a particular market. It's These are two different things. You could be a very smart, very clever guy, but you may not have a global mindset. You got to have a global mindset, and you got to have a curious mindset. You got to have almost like a sort of learner's, um, you know, you got to have conviction. So I don't mean to say that, okay, you have no conviction in yourself, but also you got to be, got to have the curiosity, and got to have the mindset that allows you to kind of refine your hypothesis very quickly. I think these are the three more important things that I would say.
Quickly, 2-3 points.
So I think where most companies have struggled in expansion is the decision making is centralized. Right, we have to localize the decision making. So we need to build a team there and empower them to make decisions. And that team should comprise of some people who are locally hired, some people who we want to move from our existing setup in India to those countries. So there is a mingling of some people who understand the product and the people who understand the market. So those two people come together, and the decision making happens there. So there nothing, everything doesn't have to come here. So most of the companies from US who came here, all the decision making happens either in Seattle or in SF. Right, so they don't understand all this, right? That's the second piece, right? One is to localize the decision making. Second thing is to build a team of that. And the third thing is there are a lot of common services that the company offers, whether it's engineering, product, data analytics, and stuff like that, right? But there you'll essentially have a front-facing team. All right, some of these guys have to start traveling to those places. You can't capture everything on a PRD. You can't always capture everything on an email and stuff like that. So these people have to go and see there and observe the differences between the two countries. Right, and that would significantly help. The localizing the decision making is probably the single biggest factor that would change the rate at which the growth happens in the new country.
So I will back the ideas. So what we are looking for is a collaboration, basically. And we have seen the global companies, when they start their operations in any new territory, they have a collaboration of the subject matter experts of that specific company who knows what the problem they are solving, and they find the local talent, a good entrepreneur, right, or a collaboration through the existing network of the capital allocators or the VCs who understand the market or who can find the person who or the companies who can collaborate with you. And that's how I think you should think about. Never try to go alone, and don't stretch yourself too thin. It's a lot of time entrepreneurs feel that pressure that they need to go global when they are either having a very thin capital allocation, or they don't have good conviction on their product, or if they think that going global can solve some of the problems that they are facing right now, right? So that is very easy distraction that they can have. So that's where, if you have a good product, that you have a good conviction, and then you have seen a good product market fit, and there is a problem that you can solve in other part of the world, you should actually go and solve that problem. And if you have the right product, the right capital allocator backing you, and the right team, I think are going to be the major points that you should focus on, and success will be there.
Perfect. Thank you, Manish, Raghunandan, and Himanshu. I think those were very diverse and powerful perspectives. What's clear that, Indian startups no longer just have ambitions of going global, but it's a lived reality. We have, aspects which we've covered today, which includes that, going global, you have to get out of your office. Can't be from a YouTube. The opportunities exist out there. You have to figure it out. Maybe start local, then look out. Localized teams, collaboration. I think, again, all very powerful ideas. And I think at the end of the day, like, the founders need conviction to carry on. Let's carry forward that conviction that the next wave of global startups and leaders are the ones from India. Thank you so much.
Thank you.